want to be a young man. You know, I want to be a person who has life for my children, for other children. So I take them on. We all go to the park and we go to eat ice cream and we enjoy ourselves. And they're all in the car, in my car, and I'm driving, and they say, put Selena Gomez on, put Bruno Mars, you know, put Katy Perry. You know, all right, we do it, we put it on. You know, we just have fun. There's a German proverb that says, a bad beginning can make a good ending. And that's all I'm trying to do. Today I am an advocate for our criminal justice system as I adjust to society. And as my wife can tell you, I'm having trouble adjusting to society to the extent that after living for so long in a prison cell, you get used to that lifestyle. You get conditioned. Almost even in a classical conditioning, Pavlovian sense. You know, I hear keys moving, and I start thinking about the prison guard. You know, walking the gallery. I get up in the middle of the night, as if I'm still a prisoner being counted at 5:30 in the morning. I have finally stopped washing my underwears in the shower, because that's what we did in prison. I don't do that anymore. You know, even walking the family dog was an issue. We had a little dog that looked like from the Wizard of Oz, Toto. You know? And we would walk him, and my daughter didn't want to walk him, and I would walk him, and then he would bite me, and then it would be a fight with the dog, and his dog is, and, you know, all of this has meant that I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's the form of trauma that people who see war experience. Because I've seen so many horrible things and have been subjected to so much that I have to now get psychological counseling, which I get every week. So this is why I am here in Germany today, to help share my story about a broken, imperfect American criminal justice system. Because what happened to me should not happen to anyone else. And all of you, as future criminal justice leaders and experts in the making, or even police officers, if any of you are, have such a responsibility to help your country continue with what is fair and just for all of its citizens. In America, or anywhere, the innocent being in prison is a public safety and human rights violation. The problem is so bad in America, for example, that we have 303 people who have been released just by DNA testing alone since 1989 up until the present. You have 143 who have been released from death row. Innocent, almost before they were executed. Thank goodness that Germany, Europe proper, does not have the death penalty. So congratulations to you on that. And then overall, you have over 1,000 people who have been put in prison for crimes they did not commit. And that's just over 1,000. Since 1989 up until the present. Experts estimate that with the problem of 2.3 million people incarcerated in America, the percentage of the innocent is as high as 5%. That means that's tens of thousands of people. And even if you take a conservative judge who says, well, the problem can't be that high. It's at least 1%. Well, even if it is 1%, judge, then you still got tens of thousands of people. It's a problem. It's a problem. And with that 1,000 amount, we have people who spent over 10,000 years in prison. And that's just with that estimate, with more numbers coming. And again, the leading cause of wrongful incarceration is mistaken eyewitness identification. It accounts for 75% of all the innocent people in America today. Mistaken eyewitness identification is a complex issue which extends to many psychological factors that perhaps even police officers may not be aware of that happen, especially the witnesses as well. And There's many studies that show differences as to how these problems occur. For example, if a crime happens in the nighttime, then there's less visibility to see an incident. If it happens fast, then obviously you can't really see what happened. In fact, most witnesses estimate that what they believe they saw within a certain amount of time, they say, well, I glanced at him, or I should say, I looked at him for 2 minutes. Studies have shown that what they believe is 2 minutes is probably actually a few seconds. That's because the brain works under traumatic circumstances in ways where, if you believe the theory of relativity, time alternates in different ways depending on your circumstances. If you're with your boyfriend or girlfriend enjoying a day out in the park, time is flowing good. You're enjoying yourself. It's like, wow, walking through the park one day. Everything is good. But when you're bored, or you're like, time goes very, very slow. Similarly, under those traumatic circumstances, time is thrown off. It is warped because of the psychological situation. People under those circumstances have a tendency, when there's a weapon, to not look at the witness, but to look at the weapon. Studies demonstrate that when there's a perpetrator, they're mostly focused on the gun, obviously because they don't want to get shot. But they don't have time to look at the face because they're just really focused on that, on the gun. So there are many psychological complexities, including the fact that if a witness is made to sit down, then it hides the height and weight. If a witness is told instructions as to tell us who you think is responsible, instead of the more favorable rule, what should be done is the person who you see in the lineup or in the photo array may or may not be the person responsible. That's the better instruction. In New York City, in 1991, one of the reasons why most of the wrongful incarcerations that have been overturned to date have occurred during that time, in New York City I'm speaking about, is because New York City in 1991 was a hotbed of crime. There was 2,000 homicides every year from 1989 up until 1993. There was not the computer technology called CompuStat, which allowed police officers to be able to lodge in information and have better access to it. That didn't exist. Afterward, it streamlined the information processing of a potential suspect with more information to make better decisions. So all of this made New York City a place which was in a war with the drug called crack, a bad situation, which is why most wrongful incarceration occurred through mistaken eyewitness identification and the rush to close cases. I can't stress to you enough the importance of rushing to close a case. Please, just don't think that because a person is black or Latino or whatever, or he's a skinhead or anything, just because he's an unusual person or whatever it is in your mind that that person has committed the crime. Think. Allow the evidence. A person's life is at stake here. An innocent person should not go to prison. Please, be careful. Because in America, racism is a problem. I have evidence, and I've submitted my evidence for a paper that I just wrote for Columbia University Law School to indicate some of the racism involved in my case. For example, one of the witnesses who came to the precinct, he's Italian, and he was told, why are you hanging out with these specs? From Italiano to Italiano, which is what the detective was Italian, you shouldn't be with these guys. And, you could be charged for this. And the detective who started investigating my case then spoke to Detective Daniel Mazanova after he brought him evidence of my innocence. And Mazanova says, guess what? Well, if Bermudez had not been arrested for this case, he probably would have committed some other crime. Just because I have been arrested for marijuana. The witnesses themselves say that the prosecutor told them that I was a dangerous drug dealer who could hurt them. So all of these are effects based on racism and human indifference. And I beg you, in your professions, to please be careful and to understand that the imperfections in our criminal justice system in America can still happen in Germany. Because law is a human instrument and it is subject to error. That's why today I am in Germany, and in October I'm in Japan, and in November I was at the Roman Colosseum speaking because I helped abolish the death penalty in Connecticut. I met with those state politicians and I spoke to them and I said, look at me, I spent 18 years in prison. What if we continue with the death penalty in Connecticut and an innocent person is executed? You can't take that back. And I was involved, and my wife was involved, and other people were involved, and we finally got the death penalty abolished in Connecticut. So I continue working, speaking at schools, and even taking my daughter. My daughter Carissa, who's 11 years old today in a black belt in Taekwondo, you know, yet is a fashionista in the school. She's the best dressed girl, it said, in the school with her little scarves and her little thing, but yet she's working on social justice. She wants to be a lawyer. She wants to do public speaking. And it's about building a professional. It's about building a vision in your lives. The vision that you're developing, obviously, is related to the law. And the vision that you can continue, sharpen, and focus is based on saving human lives and making a difference in society. Because you are all being forged, purified in the fire of life through education to become more refined. You are becoming better people, smarter individuals, people who can think critically, and therefore can become better leaders in society based on good decisions. The decisions you make today and tomorrow can turn around not only make you, but also your society and the people you come across. So I ask you to join me, Fernando Bermudez, in sharing a vision for a better society as professionals, as better police officers, as better legal scholars, as people who can make a difference in this imperfect world. And if you take that challenge, you'll see that will be its own reward, and that you will be blessed beyond the paycheck for life, today, tomorrow, and forever. Thank you.
Fernando, thanks a lot. Well, we agreed he's going to talk about for 45 minutes, it's going to be 85. And I think nobody was really bored because it was such a vivid and such a powerful speech. Thank you very much for this. However, even if you might think, okay, he's a bit of this American vibe, like he's Latino, he's taking things a bit easy. I just want to read you a very few sentences of the final sentence, which has 78 pages. And the judge at the end says, I find no credible evidence connects Fernando Bermudez to the homicide of Mr. Blanc. All of the people trial's evidence has been discredited. The false testimony of Efrain Lopez and the recanted identification of strangers. No other evidence supports the finding that Mr. Bermudez committed this crime. I find by clear and convincing evidence that Fernando Bermudez has demonstrated his innocence of this crime. So even if you might have had any doubt about his presentation, so to say, even if you might have thought about, okay, he's just a nice guy presenting his story very well, if you come back to judge's decision, was really digging through the whole case, you can see this is true, this is reality. This is not, like being pumped up a little bit. This is reality, this is what happened to him, this is his story. So, I know everybody well, has to go very soon because we have other lectures. However, if you have any questions in German, as if you want to, or English, however.
Perhaps tell us what the composition of the jury was that found you guilty in terms of the background of the people, the kind of people, men, women, what kind of backgrounds they were. Because you mentioned racism as being a factor in your...
Absolutely, and that was also played. That race card was played in that the prosecutor dismissed all Latino jurors from my jury. So I had no Latino jurors who could identify with my culture. I was called a spoiled brat. I was called any number of things that were perceived to be part of the Latino culture, yet not perhaps looked favorably by others. You know, my mother helped get me dressed in terms of not putting on my shoes like I was Buster Brown, but she helped select my clothes. She had good taste and things like that. So they portrayed this picture, and that's the reason why I believe the prosecutor eliminated all Latino jurors in my case.
And do you think it's because of the way the jury system works, or because of the way the evidence was presented to them that resulted in them finding you guilty? Or do you think it's actually possible for people from a certain background ever to get a fair trial in front of the jury?
Well, let's be clear that people of color are the ones who make up most of the prison system. In New York, for example, we make up 85% of the entire prison population. In New York State, by 1999, you had over 70,000 people incarcerated in New York State, 85 of whom were black and Latino. And so it's no mistake that that happens, especially when you have, for example, laws such as stop and frisk laws in which detectives randomly pick people